This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Chinese nationals around the world prepare to celebrate the Spring Festival and the New Year. At least 5 killed in an explosion in the Somali capital. Western powers criticized South Africa's anti-corruption policy in a memo to President Ramaphosa. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming out this hour. South Africa's pension fund board exits, deepening the crisis at Africa's largest fund. And Uganda struggles to cope with increasing new cancer cases. We start the hour in China, and people around the country are welcoming the Year of the Pig with a variety of traditional folk customs. But it's often the dragon that steals the show at holiday events. The dragon, of course, is an important element in the Spring Festival celebrations in the city of Nangur in the eastern province of Anhui. One can see dragons and lions dancing, complete with ornate costumes. People in Shandong province welcome the new year with the craft of picture cutting. Artisans create hundreds of works depicting pigs in different shapes and sizes and hang those up as symbols of happiness. Special food delicacies are also an important part of the festival. In eastern Jiangxi province, people are busy preparing traditional New Year's dishes and other delicacies such as tofu and sesame seed candy. And the Grand Light and Lantern Show in the northern city of Qinhuangdao makes an ideal setting for enjoying a very festive atmosphere. But of course, this Chinese New Year marks the start of the Year of the Pig. And here in Kenya, a group of Chinese citizens who can't go back home are preparing to celebrate the day in their own unique way. CGTN's Bulletin has more.
This kitchen is at the heart of all family celebrations. It is where Meng Zhengrong and her son Liu Yimengan have spent numerous evenings preparing meals for birthdays and special events. And now they're preparing for the biggest celebration of all, the Chinese New Year. Meng has lived in Kenya for 17 years. She moved to the capital, Nairobi, to set up a business importing and selling goods from China. Liu joined her 5 years later. He runs a charitable organization that teaches Kenyan youth to create employment opportunities. This year, the Chinese New Year or Spring Festival will fall on the 5th of February, but mother and son can't make it back home to China for the festivities.
Most of the time in Kenya, the most busy time is right now because Christmas has just passed, so all the business and all the things just have started. So it's very busy, so sometimes it's quite difficult to go back.
They will, however, take a break from work on the day. Even away from home, they are keen to honor the traditions of the day.
I want at the 4th of the New Year, the 4 days, we already have a party with some other people in another place. Then they will come here to join us.
On the eve of the Chinese New Year's Day, Chinese families usually gather for the annual reunion dinner. It is also traditional for every family to clean their house in order to sweep away any ill fortune and make way for good luck. The pair has no relatives in Nairobi, so the dumplings they make will be shared with friends.
Because dumplings looks like gold bricks in the ancient China, which was used to be the currency. So by eating the dumplings shows maybe the next year there will be a good wealth to the family.
Later in the year, Liu hopes to make his annual visit to China, but during this special time, he and his mother are content to make new memories in their home away from home. Time spent with friends and family and meals shared together are the essence of the Chinese New Year, and even away from home, Chinese nationals prepare to mark this special holiday. Bulletin for CGTN in Nairobi, Kenya.
Meanwhile, Chinese living in South Africa held a traditional New Year's Eve dinner in Cape Town to celebrate the upcoming Lunar New Year. The event brought together Chinese living abroad and South Africans to both enjoy the Chinese festivities and performances. CGTN's Noel Makubu has more.
Nearly 300 Chinese living in South Africa attended the New Year's Eve dinner. The event kicked off with drum performances brought by the Cape Town Swag Art Group, followed by other traditional and artistic performances. After the hard work in the past year, the event was an opportunity to relax and have a palatable dinner with family and friends. The guests enjoyed the festivities, exchanging New Year wishes with their Chinese friends.
It was a wonderful evening. The entertainment was outstanding. The little children were so sweet, and I'm sure it's going to be a good start to the Year of the Pig.
South Africa has mixed cultures, traditions and identities, but the Chinese community is making every effort to integrate into the wider society. Noel Makugu, CGTN.
And let's go to Somalia now. A powerful blast has rocked a busy market in the capital, Mogadishu. Clouds of smoke could be seen rising to the sky. Police say the blast occurred in Mogadishu's Hamwerenya district. The area is densely populated as it has many shops and restaurants. Now, a car bomb is said to have exploded in front of a shopping mall, and at least 5 people have been killed, while dozens others have been injured in that blast. No group has yet claimed responsibility for that attack, but Al-Shabaab frequently carries out bombings in Mogadishu and indeed other parts of Somalia. The militant group is seeking to topple the internationally backed government in Mogadishu. Let's get you the very latest on the story now. We cross over to Mogadishu, where our correspondent Abdulaziz Billo is standing by. Abdulaziz, please, just to begin with, give us the latest on this developing story and confirm, if you can, the casualty figures.
Well, Lindy, rescue operation was successfully concluded in Mogadishu's Hamwerenya district. All the dead and the injured have been accounted for according to the Somali police force. Now, what we understand is a vehicle laden with explosive was parked outside a popular central Mogadishu market at an upscale shopping mall known as the Mogadishu Mall before it detonated in the early hours of Monday morning. So at least 10 people have been confirmed dead by both the police and ambulance service, and it's an attack that rocked the central market of Mogadishu, a very popular spot where government employees, mostly civil servants and members of the security forces, go there to do their shopping, and the place is also adjacent to the local government offices, so that's why maybe it was a target. And the security forces have also taken the police, the emergency services rather, have also taken the wounded to the hospital where they are nursing their wounds.
And of course, you know, Abdulaziz, we're also hearing reports now that gunmen may have killed the head of ports operations in the Puntland region of Somalia. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, Lindy, the incident happened today in the early hours of the morning. What we've been able to gather from the Puntland Maritime Police Force, this is the security agency that is tasked with protecting the ports in that Puntland region. Puntland is an autonomous region in northeastern Somalia. So what we've been able to gather from them is a fisherman who was quite known in that area. An individual who was known as who was disguised as a fisherman rather, killed the port official working with the P&O Ports company. That is a subsidiary of Dubai Ports World, a company that's based in the UAE that recently secured a deal to maintain and run the port of Bosaso for almost 30 years. So he shot dead the official there known as Paul Anthony. We understand that he was a Maltese or an Italian national. The police have not yet confirmed the identity, the nationality rather, of the slain victim. But what we understand is the gunman was injured and is nursing his wounds at the Bosaso General Hospital, where police are going to investigate his incident. Now, Al-Shabaab militant group quickly claimed responsibility for that death, saying that they gave a warning to that company that they should not come and invest in Somalia, and they should not come and exploit the natural resources of Somalia. So the attack there in Bosaso came as a shock to many. We understand that also Al-Shabaab and ISIL are trying to dominate the coastal cities in Puntland in recent months.
A shocking attack indeed, and certainly a tragic start to the week in Somalia. Thank you so much, Abdulaziz Billo, joining us there live from Mogadishu. And as he has confirmed there, that death toll in this morning's incident in Mogadishu is now at 10. That's 10 people confirmed dead. Now, this latest attack comes shortly after authorities said they had foiled an attack on an army base in the south of the country. Here's more now from CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo.
Saturday's blast targeted an army checkpoint in the southern Somali town of Bardere. Al-Shabaab claims to have killed 16 Ethiopian troops after detonating an explosive-laden vehicle. AMISOM is yet to comment on the attack against one of its troop-contributing force. Officials in Bardere say the bomber detonated the vehicle after failing to reach the Ethiopian army base. Last week, a statement from the Ethiopian Defense Ministry said its air force had carried out airstrikes on Al-Shabaab bases, killing 35 fighters, among them an explosive expert. With more than 4,000 troops, Ethiopia is among the biggest troop-contributing member country to the multinational peacekeeping force AMISOM, alongside Kenya, Burundi, Djibouti and Uganda. Earlier this week, Tigabu Yilma of Ethiopia assumed the role of AMISOM force commander, a position awarded to top commanders from troop-contributing countries on a rotational basis.
I would say to thank you, the former force commander, to make this kind of commitment. I think this mission is, as he said, a hard, a challenge, but we will do.
Work is there to be done. We have not yet finished our mandate. The task ahead of you is mammoth, but I'm very confident that you can do it. And I thank you and your government for placing you at the head of our mission of AMISOM forces at this very point in time in which we are supposed to implement transition, to hand over to the Somalis the responsibility of security of their country.
Meanwhile, U.S. military killed 13 Al-Shabaab militants in an airstrike near Gendarshe in the Lower Shabelle region just 2 days after another attack that killed 24 militants in the central Hiran region. The U.S. Africa Command says the militants were targeted while preparing for an attack on a Somali government base near Mogadishu. Al-Shabaab has carried out numerous attacks on army bases belonging to all of the African Union troop-contributing countries, killing scores of soldiers and seizing weapons. Analysts say the Al-Qaeda-linked group is the deadliest in the African continent and have based their research on the group's ever-increasing attack patterns. In January, it targeted a high-end hotel in Nairobi, killing 21 people, 2 months after launching a similar attack in Mogadishu, killing 54 people. AMISOM is expected to hand over security responsibilities to Somali forces next year. But based on recent developments, experts say Mogadishu will heavily rely on foreign troops for protection. Abdulaziz Billo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, still in Somalia, the African Union mission in the country is expected to withdraw 1,000 troops this month. The troops from Burundi have their main base in Joha, the administrative capital of Hirshabelle state. Now, Hirshabelle President Mohamed Abdi Ware has expressed concern over the proper implementation of a transition plan. If not carefully executed, the state is likely to be left vulnerable to attacks due to loopholes in security. The first drawdown of troops from Somalia took place at the end of 2017. A resolution by the United Nations Security Council last year authorized the continental body to make another withdrawal this month without further delay. Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Western powers criticized South Africa's anti-corruption policy in a memo to President Ramaphosa. And Uganda is struggling to cope with increasing new cases of cancer.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. My home country lies at the foot of Africa, the southernmost tip of our beautiful continent, and the unique point at which two great oceans meet. Now on a clear day in Cape Town, you can just make out Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela was jailed for so long. South Africa has changed so much in the years since then, but it is this country's history that shaped me and took me into reporting. I'm inspired by Africa's men and women of courage. It's the everyday hero who brings out my passion. The creatives, the decision makers, the risk takers who are shaping a bright African future. I see them in Cape Town. I see them in the pulsating city of Johannesburg. I see them across the continent, and I know our time has come.
CGTN is a platform where African voices can speak for themselves and take their stories to the world. My name is Lindy Mtongana, and I'm a news anchor and reporter for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's return now to our coverage of Somalia. Just ahead of that break, we were giving you that report on the African Union mission in the country. And of course, they plan to withdraw some troops from the forces there. Now, as of the end of February, 1,000 Burundian troops will have exited Somalia. Let's bring you some analysis on this. We're now joined by Hassan Sheikh Ali Noor, who's a lecturer in international relations and diplomacy studies at the University of Mogadishu. Hassan, this withdrawal of Burundian forces has raised some, security concerns, of course. Is it being done with regards, the transition, is it being done in a way that will ensure the security and safety of local residents?
Simply, I'm not expecting they did well because, as we know, in Somalia, the all security institutions, both the federal level and the regional states, are very weak. And then Somalia's national army not yet erected or established well. So if the Burundian forces will withdraw from the Middle Shabelle or Hirshabelle, that the withdrawal will create a vacuum and other elements they will feel. And I think the decision to be withdrawn from Johor should be reviewed and not to create the vacuum and the system collapse in that particular region in Somalia, where the security establishment still is very weak.
Well, of course, this withdrawal is part of a bigger plan to completely withdraw all AMISOM forces over the next few years. What needs to be done to ensure that this transition plan does not create massive challenges for security in Somalia?
Actually, the Somalia still need a firm leadership and an effective government which can have a vision and strategic planning to establish the Somali National Army. And that one we don't have yet. So the international community, particularly the Africanists and the neighboring countries and friendly countries, should come together to put forward to establish Somali National Army, because Somalis should take care of themselves. Nobody can be here for such a time. As we know, the AMISOM was here for the last 10 years, and there is still nothing changed on the ground. So that AMISOM, the Somalis elite, the international partners or the friendly states are failing to establish an effective and trustable army to replace the foreign forces in Somalia. So we need to establish or to establish effective government of tribal state to take care of itself.
Thank you so much. Hassan Sheikh Ali Noor joining us there from Mogadishu with that analysis. Now, another news, South Africa has expressed disappointment after the United States and other Western powers wrote to President Cyril Ramaphosa, urging him to tackle corruption. A local newspaper reported on Sunday that the United States, Britain, Germany, the Netherlands and Switzerland sent a joint memorandum to Ramaphosa through their diplomatic missions in Pretoria. In it, they warned that foreign investment was at risk unless South Africa takes tangible action against perpetrators of graft and other serious crimes. While South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation said in a statement those countries had breached diplomatic protocol. International Relations Minister has instructed her department to take action against the 5 ambassadors of those countries. Ahead of elections this year, Ramaphosa has vowed to root out corruption and reform policies in the country. Let's bring you more on this story now, joined by CGTN's Angelo Coppola in South Africa, and Ali Barrett is live with us from London. Angelo, let's start with you in Johannesburg. Now, of course, the South African government unhappy with this memo. Tell us more about Ramaphosa and his government's response.
Well, not only is the government upset and disappointed, but they've gone to the extent, and that's DIRCO, the International Relations Department, of demarching the 5 ambassadors who are based in Pretoria, which means they're going to provide for a meeting to happen very quickly. The minister, in fact, instructed her operatives to get to those ambassadors, to get them to come to see her, to discuss why they breached protocol. Because apparently across the world, the universal norm is that if a government or a foreign government has an issue with the country in which they're acting as ambassadors, that they go through voice notes or vocal notes, and they follow a due process. So it seems that DIRCO, that's the International Relations Department, is upset about the process that was followed by those 5 countries. So at the moment, we're not sure whether those meetings have in fact taken place or not, but there's definitely a huge amount of disappointment, and I would say probably a little bit of irritation voiced. The last time this happened was in 2017, when the Australian ambassador stepped forward and made some comments around land redistribution. And for that, the DIRCO minister called him in and wrapped him over the knuckles. Lindy?
Ollie, just bring us the British perspective on this now. Of course, you know, as we're just hearing from Angelo, there's concerns that diplomatic protocol has been breached. Why would the British government, go this route on an issue like corruption?
Well, there's no statement from the Foreign Office here in London as yet, so the details of these letters have really come in local reporting in South Africa, but also via the South African government saying that it has indeed received these letters. The British and the Americans and the other signatories will be very well aware of the diplomatic protocol and how they are supposed to go about these things, and so you can only surmise from the fact that the letters have been apparently sent direct to the presidency that the countries involved have felt that either this is of significant gravity to make the case direct to the presidency and taking DIRCO out of the loop, or even that they perhaps feel that they have not been getting a good enough response on this issue from the International Relations Department in South Africa. So the news coming towards the ambassadors in South Africa that they have breached protocol, I suspect will be of little surprise to them. It may, of course, give them another chance to make their case as well, that more action needs to be taken, which is the British position.
And Angelo, just coming back to you now, do you think at all that Western powers are justified in sending this memo to the president, considering the kind of action we're seeing being taken in South Africa against corruption?
Well, analysts are saying a couple of things here. There's been a little bit of policy certainty that started to come through, specifically in the mining sector. We've seen that mining charter that's finally been agreed to, so there's a bit of progress there. In terms of corruption, well, Ramaphosa made some fairly large promises at his inauguration just over a year ago today, and some of those promises have been met, others haven't. In terms of corruption, he hasn't done much other than appoint a commission of inquiry into the Public Investment Corporation and into the National Prosecuting Authority. But no corruption charges have been laid. There have been no cases in terms of corruption and prosecuting those who are alleged to have been defrauding or being corruptees or corruptors. So there hasn't been much action there. Understanding that Zondo was also, the Zondo Commission into State Capture was actually brought to life by the ex-President Jacob Zuma. That has still got another 12 months to go, and it's unlikely we'll see any prosecutions there. So there are two things here. The policy certainty is important because investors want to know that their money and their returns are safe. So they need that. In terms of corruption, they're not seeing the president live up to his promises in that area. And some analysts are suggesting that Ramaphosa, in fact, hasn't got the strength yet. He needs to win this next election in order to then take his corruption fight into where it needs to be taken to. Lindy?
And Ali, what do you think then is Britain's concern regarding South Africa's lack of action against perpetrators of corruption and other serious crimes? I mean, just to what extent is this seen as an obstacle to foreign investment?
Certainly seen as a major obstacle by the British here in London, and the UK pointing out that along with the other signatories to this letter, they represent 75% of investment into South Africa, and therefore they clearly feel that they represent a significant enough group to make these complaints. But it's actually also not just about corruption. These letters also talk about some of the rules and regulations with regards to the mining industry, with regards to issues around intellectual property rights and other areas as well. The British and the other signatories say that those rules are changing too often and in too unpredictable a manner. Of course, the cliche that we always trot out, but which is true, is that businesses don't like uncertainty, and so clearly London and these other Western nations are trying to make the point to the South Africans that certainty is crucial, tackling corruption is crucial, and as I say, they clearly decided they wanted to make this point direct to the presidency.
Absolutely. Ali Barrett, thank you so much for joining us there from London, and of course Angela Coppola with us from Johannesburg. Now let's turn to some other international news. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has recognized Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela. Spain joins other European countries in recognizing Guaido as interim leader of the South American country. And of course, these others include France, the UK, Sweden and Denmark. Now to news from Senegal. Presidential campaigns have officially kicked off. Incumbent President Macky Sall is running for a second term in office, and he'll face 4 challenges in the upcoming polls that are due to be held later this month. 2 top opposition candidates were blocked last month from running for the highest seat in the land. Karim Wade and Khalifa Sall were both jailed for counts of corruption. These sentences ended their chances of taking part in the February 24th election. The presidential hopefuls have now 3 weeks on the campaign trail to garner enough support to win the poll.
Before Issa was a candidate, he did something for Senegal. He built the Sahel University, so he invested in Senegal. That is why Issa is the best candidate. He is a candidate of values.
We want to change the country with our leader Ousmane Sonko. We have faith in him. We believe in him. That's why this campaign is our campaign. It's the campaign of the youth.
As the world marks World Cancer Day, Uganda is struggling to cope with new cancer cases that have gone up by 50% in the last 10 years. Specialists at the Cancer Institute are concerned that the mortality rate now stands at 80%. That's higher than that of HIV. Isabel Nakiria reports.
Agnes Nachintu is trying to stitch her life back together. She's been battling breast cancer since 2016. Agnes took the first symptoms lightly when she discovered she had a lump in her breast.
I was taken to some people who gave me herbal medicine to drink, but my condition worsened. The lump in my breast even burst and the pain increased.
The severe pain sent her running to the Cancer Institute in Kampala. Agnes was immediately put on chemotherapy and had one of her breasts cut off.
I'm now much better. I still feel some pain and sometimes wake up feeling really weak, but I struggle to get up and walk.
Like Agnes, many cancer patients go to hospital only when it's too late. A number of people are turning up here to screen for cancer. Health teams here hope they will be able to put several people on treatment and save lives. Cancer specialists say a third of cancers can be cured if detected early.
By the time the patient comes, it is an advanced stage. Nothing much can be done over a long period of time. survival rate is a little bit low. So that is why we lose most of these people.
Authorities are now concerned that cancer numbers are going up.
10 years ago, it was 250. Now, it is 350. So that means actually the number has gone by almost more than 50%. So that one is what we are calling the increase in as far as cancer new cases is concerned.
As for Agnes, she's full of hope, with one stitch at a time, that her health will continue to improve. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala.
Recapping your top stories this hour. As Chinese New Year approaches, people around the world and of course in China are welcoming the Year of the Pig with a variety of traditional folk customs. It is often the dragon that steals the show at holiday events. Of course, it's an important element in spring festival celebrations. And even here in Kenya, a group of Chinese citizens who can't go back home are preparing to celebrate the day in their own unique way. A powerful blast has rocked a busy market in the Somali capital of Mogadishu. Clouds of smoke could be seen in the sky. Police say the blast occurred in Mogadishu's Hamrawen district. The area is densely populated as it has many shops and restaurants. A car bomb exploded in front of a shopping mall. At least 10 people have been killed and dozens others injured in that blast. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but Al-Shabaab frequently carries out bombings in Mogadishu and other parts of Somalia. South Africa has expressed disappointment after the United States and other Western powers wrote to President Cyril Ramaphosa, urging him to tackle corruption. A local newspaper reported on Sunday that the United States, Britain, Germany, the Netherlands and Switzerland sent a joint memo to Ramaphosa through their diplomatic missions in Pretoria. They warned that foreign investment was at risk unless South Africa takes tangible action against perpetrators of graft and other serious crimes. And as the world marks World Cancer Day, Uganda is struggling to cope with new cancer cases that have gone up by 50% over the last 10 years. Specialists at the Cancer Institute are concerned that the mortality rate, which now stands at 80%, is higher than that of HIV. And those are your top stories this hour. Coming up in your business news up next. South Africa's pension fund board exits, deepening the crisis at Africa's largest fund. And Japan car maker Nissan shelves plans to set up a plant in the UK over Brexit.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
South Africa's Public Investment Corporation has been thrown into a $150 billion crisis following the resignation of its board of directors. The resignations come amidst allegations of widespread corruption at the pension fund. In the past year, half of the executive committee has been suspended or resigned, including ex-chief executive officer Daniel Majila. Africa's largest fund manager has been subjected to ongoing investigations regarding the bonds of Eskom Holdings and technology company AO Technology Solutions. The PIC says it has immediately started a forensic investigation into those allegations of impropriety made by an anonymous whistleblower against 3 board members. And South Africa's Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has reportedly begun searching for replacement directors. Now, Kenya's foreign direct investments flow reduced by 57.1% to an estimated 0.3 billion in 2018. It had previously registered about 0.7 billion in 2017. All this according to a report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Now, in total, Eastern African nations attracted an estimated $6.8 billion in investment. However, the UN Trade Agency says this was a 14% reduction from the $7.9 billion back in 2017. Ethiopia recorded an estimated $3.1 billion from $4 billion in 2017, registering a 24% slowdown in inflows. Uganda and Tanzania witnessed increases of nearly 20%, posting an estimated $1.1 billion and 0.9. FDI flows to the region are projected to increase by 54% to 11.5 billion. That's compared to 7.5 billion in 2017. Meanwhile, Tanzania is bound to earn about $180.2 million from its stock of cashew nuts. The country signed an agreement with Kenyan-registered firm Indo Power Solutions for the purchase of 100,000 tons of nut stock. The Kenyan company was among 9 private buyers that bid to buy the crop from farmers last year. No company in the region has the capacity to process 100,000 tons, as it currently stands at about 50,000 tons a year. Tanzania produced about 240,000 tons of cashew nuts during the 2017-2018 season. The government bought 213,000 tons, for which it paid farmers $180.2 million. Indo Power has offered to pay the farmers $180.89 million. Egyptian consumers have launched a campaign against car dealers called Let It Rot. It's calling on citizens to refrain from buying cars. Consumers have been complaining that the prices of vehicles in Egypt have seen a sharp increase, and most of the money goes into the pockets of the importers and retailers. Here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with more.
The campaign started on Facebook and soon went viral across all media channels. It's a reflection of the anger of consumers towards car producers.
The dealers are abusing us with very high prices to make quick profits. We will not accept it, and we will take a stand until they lower the prices.
Prices of cars have been rising by 20% a year since 2012, and in 2016 it more than doubled after the floating of the Egyptian pound. Traders say it's not their fault.
The agent sets the price of the car with the mother company. The retailers add a 3% profit only. Zero tariffs adopted recently are only on European imported cars, which constitute just 10% of the market. The rest remained the same. That's why consumers didn't feel much price reductions. Actually, prices of cars could increase because the dollar tariff value for imports has gone up against the Egyptian pound.
Let It Rot campaign is calling on Egyptians to boycott the car market until traders cut on their profits and sell at reasonable prices, especially after the tariffs on all European cars have been scrapped.
We expected the prices to go down, but I still can't see much difference. Just more profits for traders. We will continue with our boycott.
Prices of European imported vehicles had dropped by only 10%, keeping the market slow. Sales have remained low.
The Let It Rot campaign has negatively affected the market that is already suffering from a recession. Because of zero tariffs, prices of European cars have dropped by 12%, but to stimulate the market, many dealers are beginning to offer discounts reaching 15% and more.
Experts say the first quarter of the year is always a low season. They're hoping the market would slowly revive itself and sales would pick up by next summer. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Nissan has announced the cancellation of plans to make its X-Trail SUV in the UK. This is a sharp blow for British Prime Minister Theresa May, who fought to have the model built in Northern England. Falling demand for diesel cars in Europe has forced Nissan to cut hundreds of jobs at its Sunderland factory. Nissan also said it has plans to consolidate production of the next generation X-Trail at its main plant in Kyushu, Japan. Now, this has made undisclosed concessions designed to ensure the car maker's ability to compete after Brexit.
But it concerns me that they have noted the uncertainty around Brexit, and I think that is a serious signal to all of us in Parliament that now is the time to resolve that uncertainty so it doesn't impinge on any decisions in the future. People can invest with confidence in Britain knowing with confidence that we're going to be able to trade as we have, without tariffs and without frictions with the rest of Europe.
Now, as Nissan decides to downsize its UK operations, fears are mounting within the auto industry over the country's possible no-deal Brexit. As it stands, the UK is struggling to meet its Brexit deadline of 29 March. Richard Bestick reports from London.
Britain's thriving auto industry, a major employer and contributor to the UK economy, sees itself as a victim of Brexit's uncertainties. Car production has slumped to a 5-year low, and investment has been cut in half, according to analysis by the Society of Motor Manufacturers. Industry leaders say a no-deal Brexit would be responsible for enormous damage to output, investment and jobs.
I think the industry is very worried, and we've been very clear. No deal would be a disaster. We need a deal. We need that status quo transition that gives you some breathing space to allow you to negotiate whatever the future relationship is going to be.
Customs-free crossings at Britain's ports are critical to the auto industry's just-in-time delivery of components, as it is in Britain's retail sector. The heads of Britain's leading supermarkets warn of empty shelves and higher prices if there's no deal, concerns existing across the UK economy.
A survey by the Institute of Directors has found that a third of its membership says they've either already moved operations overseas or they plan to.
Fears of a no-deal Brexit have forced UK banking giant Barclays to shift nearly $200 billion of assets to its Irish subsidiary. The bank says it can't wait any longer for an agreement. And there are Brexit worries for individuals. Following reports medical supplies could be delayed, Joe Elgarve here is stockpiling the medicine needed to control potentially lethal seizures suffered by her 4-year-old daughter Nora.
If I had all the money in the world, I can't go and buy these medicines because they're prescription-only medicines. I have no way of securing my child's future.
With continued deadlock among factions in the British Parliament and with Brussels, the prospect of a no-deal Brexit is moving from a fear to a potential reality, viewed by British industry and business with dismay and deep concern. Richard Bestick, CGTN, London.
Time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the programme. Coming up, legal questions surround Egyptian artefacts due to be exhibited in Scotland.
When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Do you see fast-growing, endless deserts and parched earth? Or do you see the biggest opportunity for an agricultural revolution in a generation? Do you see crowded, unplanned cities or vast, untapped markets? Do you see a population at risk, or do you see a billion-strong opportunity to grow the next wave of multi-billion-dollar firms in Africa? When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Egypt has formally demanded proof that artefacts due to be exhibited at the National Museum of Scotland were not taken from the country illegally. A 4,500-year-old stone said to have been taken from the Great Pyramid of Giza was brought to Scotland in 1872 by Charles Piazzi Smith, an astronomer and devout Christian who was convinced the pyramid was the brainchild of Noah. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more.
The stone, taken to Scotland in 1872, would be the centerpiece of a permanent exhibition on ancient Egypt in the city of Edinburgh. The Egyptian government says the artifact might have been brought to Scotland illegally, an accusation the Scottish officials have denied.
Scotland will be exhibiting 7,000 ancient Egyptian items, including this stone from the outer layer of the Great Pyramid of Cheops. There are contracts between Egyptian officials and the Scottish Museum to verify that it's been obtained legally. I believe the museum will prove the piece has been taken out of Egypt legally and not smuggled.
Thousands of ancient Egyptian monuments had been smuggled out of the country for centuries. A special committee has been formed in 2010 to discover their whereabouts and retrieve them.
Most of the artifacts taken out before 1983 were considered legitimate because there was no law to prohibit the trade of Egyptian artifacts. Artifacts were allowed to be transported out, either when sold publicly at the Egyptian Museum, given as gifts by the heads of states, or as a reward for foreign excavation missions.
From 1983, any ownership, transport, trade or smuggling of Egyptian artifacts is considered illegal and punishable by law. However, the process to identify the legality of thousands of artifacts abroad is long and costly. Egypt has successfully retrieved 22,000 smuggled artifacts in 2018 alone. The Ministry of Antiquities says it plans to establish a special section at Cairo Museum to showcase to the public the retrieved pieces from around the world. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Your sports news coming up next. Up next on the program, we bring you the latest from the Lagos City Marathon.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way.
Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We begin now with athletics news. Ethiopian Sintayehu Legesse has won this year's Access Bank Lagos City Marathon in Nigeria, taking home a star prize of $50,000. Legesse finished the race in 2 hours, 17 minutes and 28 seconds to beat defending champion Joshua Kiprotich from Kenya, who clocked 2 hours, 18 minutes and 16 seconds. Another Kenyan, William Yegon, came third in a time of 2 hours, 19 minutes and 4 seconds. In the women's event, it was a clean sweep for Ethiopia as the trio of Meseret Dinke, Alemenesh Herpa Guta and Kebena Chala took the top 3 spots respectively. Organizers say 100,000 athletes from 58 countries took part in the 42-kilometer race, which is in its 4th edition.
The quality of the competition will be much higher when people are paying. You'll find out that you have a more a number that you can control. We have over 120 athletes running. Even the biggest marathons all over the world, you have 40, 50, because they all pay. So it ensures that you have a quality field. It ensures also that you are able to raise some funds to improve the level of the marathon itself.
Over 400 foreign athletes participated in this year's edition, meaning that the world is beginning to accept the Lagos City Marathon. So as a person, I am overwhelmed that it happened during my tenure as a minister, and I pray for the sustainability of this marathon.
Now in football news, Sergio Aguero scored his 10th league hat-trick, albeit in an unconventional fashion, to lift Manchester City back to 2nd place in the English Premier League. This in a 3-1 win over Arsenal. It took the Argentine just 48 seconds to get on